Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to a new video. I hope you guys enjoyed kind of the little washing montage. I was going to do a wash and talk, but I was watching the kids all day and everything. I didn't get a chance to actually sit down and do a full talk. A little difficult when there's a bunch of kids running around. I was able to get the wash done, obviously, but having a wash and talk is a little bit more difficult. So I just had to make do and just get a wash done. I just kind of put a little montage together. But if you notice, I have the car cover on and it's in the garage and I plan on driving it this week. But the main reason why I put it on was because when the garage was open and I was, getting the car cleaned up and finished, pollen was just covering it within like a minute. I mean, you can see my wife's car over here, all the pollen here. It was ridiculous today. It was really, really warm. So all the pollen just started coming out of nowhere and just covering everything. So I threw the cover on just to kind of protect it and keep the pollen off the car while it's hanging out in the garage. But what I actually want to talk about in this video, a lot of people were asking me questions as to why I stayed stock location and why I didn't go to rotated. Now, if you guys have not been following along, I just recently changed up my power, did a couple performance mods, one of which was actually a Blausch 1.5 XTR turbo, and I also did an external wastegate with a PLM turbo up pipe and the dump tube as well, and the Tile 44mm wastegate. So I did all that, got retuned and everything. And a lot of people were asking me, how come I didn't go rotated? How come I chose this setup? Why did I stay stock location? So I figured I'd make this video going over the reasons as to why I went this route and why I didn't decide just to go all out and do a fully rotated setup right away. So before I changed over the turbo and I went to this current phase of this car, I was running stage 3, if you want to call it. So I did all the fueling mods, I did equal length headers, I did a few other things as well. And I was around 340 horsepower, 352 foot-pounds of torque. Felt fantastic. I loved the car. It really, really didn't honestly need any more. But one of my main goals in this car in general is simply just to upgrade and enhance things that I feel like are lacking. So the way that my mind works is I like to do modifications that is simply going to help the reliability, that is going to help elongate the overall longevity of the motor, keep it healthy, keep it happy. And that is kind of my philosophy anytime I put a modification on. I'm always looking for something that's a little bit better than stock, that's going to produce a little bit less stress, create a little bit less heat, and overall just be a more efficient setup. So with the stock turbo, the VF48, we all know that that turbo is okay. It's great for the street and everything, but for the power levels that I was at currently, I was at 18 PSI with that turbo, the stock turbo, and it was doing okay. The one place that I felt like it was on the top end. You felt like it kind of died out and just kind of fell flat on its face. But overall, I really, in my mind, I was like, this is totally fine. I really don't need to upgrade. But thinking logically and thinking just how hard that little stock turbo was working just to get to the power levels that I was at, it was creating a lot of heat. So creating a lot of heat in the EJ motor is obviously not a good thing. You want as less heat as possible. So in my mind and the way that I think is, okay, let's get something that can provide similar power, obviously have a little bit more headroom, but also be able to get something that's going to be able to work less, which would create less heat. So overall, that would become more reliable. It would increase the longevity of the motor and just be a better route to go. So obviously going rotated, that's pretty much what everybody wants to do with these cars. It opens a lot of doors for power. It leaves a lot of doors open for upgrading and doing other things in the future. Obviously it's a little bit more serviceable as well since it's an easier location. It's sitting right here. There's a lot of pros to going to rotated, but for me, I really like that OEM plus philosophy. I really like sticking to kind of what's already there, just enhancing and upgrading, kind of what's there already. And staying stock location was super simple. Everything fits perfectly. I don't have to change the entire setup. Obviously going to rotated were really, I would obviously straight up, I would have to build a motor, no question. Putting a rotated setup on this motor specifically would just not end well. Sure, I'd probably have some fun for a little bit, but it would just end in utter catastrophe, which I'm sure you guys know. Obviously, if I had the Type RA motor, it will be a little bit more, I guess, doable, or at least I would have thought about it a little bit more. But for me, for the 2018 under EJ motor, I think staying stock location is the best move. So again, if you haven't been following me, I ended up at 413 horsepower with 358 foot-pounds of torque at 18 PSI. So a little bit more power, but I'm still only running 18 PSI. So the car is still very, very conservative, very reliable. It's not pushing any of the components by any means. We all know that all the hard parts and all the modifications that I put on the car is obviously way more capable of doing way more power. For me, I kind of like to go, I don't want to say overkill, but I always like to go a little bit above and beyond and get the best part that I possibly can get. So the big reason as to why I stayed stock location was simply because I want the experience. I kind of went over this very quickly in other videos, but I want to go over it in a little bit more detail. You guys know that when I do modifications, I really, really like to gain the knowledge. And the reason for that is because I like to share that with you guys. I like to kind of go over my experience, give you my feedback, let you know if it's the right direction, at least, for me, just kind of guide you in the direction that I think is what most people want to go with, simply because I'm like you guys as well. I feel like everything that I do is extremely relatable. It's extremely doable as well. A lot of people can do this setup eventually. I understand not everyone can do it, but you're not having to pull the motor out yourself or anything like that. You don't have to do a closed deck. You don't have to do anything crazy. All this stuff is simply just bolt-ons. Anybody can buy them. It's not like I got any custom work or anything like that. It's all stuff that you can buy off the shelves from all the different companies and do this exact setup. So being able to experience a stock location setup, I'm going to drive on it for many, many miles, and then I'm going to share my feedback, let you guys know what I think. Who knows? I may in the long run say, hey, it's not worth it. I should have just pulled the motor out, built a full closed deck and went rotated. Being able to experience the stock location, I'm going to be able to offer that advice. I'm going to be able to offer that experience, that feedback. And that is really important because personally, when I'm looking for feedback, when I'm looking for information, I trust people that actually have experience with that specific modification or whatever it may be. If somebody is just saying like, oh, this is the first time I ever tried it, I haven't tried anything else, but it's the greatest thing in the world. Your advice is just simply not that validated. It just doesn't make sense. You never tried anything else, so how do you know it's the best or the worst or what have you? So me kind of going to this stock location, trying it out, and then probably eventually going to a rotated setup down the road, I'll be able to offer my advice. Who knows, maybe down the road when I do go rotated and build a motor and do anything crazy, I might say, nope, definitely not worth all the money I just put into it. I should have stayed stock location. I should have kept it simple. And I want to be able to offer that feedback. Yeah, that's simply put. That's honestly the main reason why I want to stay stock location turbo. Obviously, a second reason is because going to rotated it's crazy money. Honestly, it's pretty much like a whole other STI at this point, the way that I want to do it. So going that route obviously it's going to take a little bit more time just to kind of save up and kind of go there. Obviously, going to everything that I did here is not cheap either because we all know getting the 413 horsepower in EJ motor, doing all this is not, it's not the cheapest thing in the world, but I'm happy to be able to kind of be the guinea pig, try this out, let you guys know if it's worth it, let you guys know if I think you should go this route or whatnot. It's definitely going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to putting more miles on it and experiencing the whole entire new setup. So far, absolutely love it. I think it's absolutely perfect for a daily driver or at least a street car. If you solely track the car or you do drag racing or anything like that, you're going for really big power. Obviously, there's probably some better options. But for a really, really good street turbo and street setup, honestly, I don't think I could have picked a better setup. Now, last thing I want to go over, because a lot of people were asking me, am I stock internals? This is a stock motor. What's going on? Yes, 100%. Has not been removed ever. Stock block, stock everything, stock internals. Yes, I know what the capabilities and what can possibly happen to these kinds of motors, but I just want to prove a point that, if you do high quality mods, you do it right, it's going to actually treat you well. Now, I'm not saying this is bulletproof. I'm not saying that nothing will ever happen to this, with this setup. And it very well could. I'm not saying that it's not going to happen or it couldn't happen. But obviously I'm prepared for that. So if it does, we can just kind of move on and kind of go on to the next step. But I'm just trying to make a point because a lot of people have a really bad rep about Subarus and this motor in general, saying it's terrible, it can't hold power, you can't do this, you can't do that. And I'm kind of taking a different approach. I'm trying to show people that if you want to do it correctly, if you want to do it right, this is kind of the way, or at least the direction that I would go. to build it reliably, to, you know, have a lot of fun, be able to do just bolt-ons and not have to go crazy and do a full built motor. At least for now. Obviously, we'll see what happens in the future, but this kind of goes back to what I was saying in the beginning. I just want to experience it. I want to be able to provide the feedback. I might be able to drive on this setup for the next 10 years and have zero issues, and, you know, something may happen tomorrow. You know, you never know. It's really hard to say, but with any high performance, you know, car, any sports car or anything like this, there's always going to be an Achilles heel. You just need to be ready for it, especially if you're, you know, modifying the car and trying to make it faster and more fun and stuff like that. It's always going to have an Achilles heel. Even BMW M3s, even Porsches, all that stuff. There's always an Achilles heel. There's always some catastrophic failure in all those types of performance cars. So yeah, I just kind of want to go over that in the video, give a little bit more explanation as to why I decided to go to stock location. I think it's the right move, at least for me right now. But for this phase of this car and where I am currently with this, you know, phase of it, I think it was the perfect solution. I'm going to be doing tons of driving videos, exhaust videos, you know, going over my review and everything once I get more miles on the car. I don't want to just say, hey, it's great, you know, after experiencing it for, you know, 10 miles or whatever. I want to actually get some seat time and get some feedback and experience with it and really get a clear mindset and be able to kind of steer you guys in the right direction. So I will obviously get those videos up once I have more seat time. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys. Also, before I end the video, this is a new method. I did a whole video on how to properly wash microfibers, and someone actually gave me a tip to actually soak them in the rags to riches and the detergent that I use to clean up the microfibers. So that's what I do now. I actually pre-soak them. And as you can see, check out the water in there. It's absolutely disgusting. That's all the dirt and grime and stuff that's been sitting on the microfibers. So I'm going to do this, wring them out, and then actually wash them in the wash. And it just comes out so much better. The whole entire towel just feels so much better in the long run. I've been doing this for quite a while now, since that video actually. So whoever gave me that tip, I appreciate it. It really, really does help. And I definitely recommend it because look at that water. It is absolutely disgusting. And this was only the wash from today. So that's all I got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any more questions or you want a little bit more detailed explanation as to why I went to stock location, you know, leave them in comments below. I'll be happy to answer. But in the meantime, keep it clean, keep it simple, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.